Well, hello strangers, it's nice to be back. Welcome to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. I have thoroughly enjoyed my rest from filming after the craziness of Cavemas, so thank you very much to all those of you who wished me a pleasant break. Just before we get started with the main part of the video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the giveaway which we talked about in the last Cavemas video. The closing date for the giveaway is tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 8th of January, so you have 24 hours if you still want to enter, and if you want to know how to enter you can go back and watch the video. I will link it in the card and also down in the description for you, and you can get in with a chance to win that prize. Today I'm starting a new series of drawings, and this has stemmed from a video I did on testing out different types of alcohol marker paper, and one of the things that I tested out was this little Copic sketchbook, and it's just a little dinky one, it's lovely, and I really felt as if it deserved a purpose. One of my other loves in life apart from art is playing computer games or video games, and they have been part of my life since I was a very young child, and I was lucky enough to be part of the generation that saw the advent of home computer systems. So there is quite a heavy influence of computer game characters in my artwork, and I'm sure some of you will have seen some of my drawings on Facebook and also in these videos. So I'm going to dedicate this book solely to computer game characters, and I am going to fill the entire thing. It's going to take me a while. There were 50 pages in this sketchbook. I have taken a couple out for testing purposes, but that's still a lot of pages to fill. So we are going to get started today, and let's get going. Alright, so I felt it was fitting to start with this character because there was a time when I was young and my brother and I used to share games consoles. There's only 4 years between my older brother and I, and we are the only two. And I always got his hand-me-downs in terms of gaming consoles. And one Christmas I was given a Super Nintendo, and it was mine, and it was all just mine and not my brother's. So I was ecstatic because this Super Nintendo was just for me. Now, we had other games consoles. We had the original Nintendo Entertainment System and one thing and another, but this Super Nintendo was mine. It was just mine. And the box that it came in was a themed box, and they had just released the Super Mario All-Stars bundle, and that was one cartridge with all the Mario Brothers games on it, and I've never been happier in my entire life. So I had never played Super Mario Brothers 3 at this point, and when I saw the artwork on the front of the box I instantly loved it, and I said to myself, I've got to get me some ears and a tail for my Mario. So that is what I'm drawing here. I am drawing Raccoon Mario, which was first featured in Super Mario Bros. 3. And basically when you're running along, you pick up a little brown, looks like an autumn leaf, and when you get it, it gives you a tail. So what that lets you do is you run and sprint, and you jump up into the air, and it lets you float by basically using your tail as a propeller. It's quite entertaining. And that's, that was quite a novel thing back in 1980, whenever it came out. But as I say, I was actually more taken by the box art because there was really, it was primary colours that were used, and that obviously that was done on purpose. But I got so many hours of joy out of that game, and the other Mario games too, but more to the point, on my own, in my own room, without anybody else, aka my brother, being able to come in and say, oh, it's my turn now, you've got to share. So yeah, there was many hours of my youth ruined, especially in Scotland where the weather is terrible and you can't always get outside to play when you're that age. Then the Super Nintendo was my absolute saviour. So I want to talk a bit more about the drawing now, and I plumped for a mechanical pencil because I'm on marker paper. I just felt like it might be less messy. I tend to use a B or a 2B pencil to sketch, and because it's quite a slick surface I thought that might not be the best idea. So that mechanical pencil is an HB that I'm using there. Now, I got my giddy knickers on and decided I was going to use my brush liner to outline Mario, which was the worst idea ever because number one, I wasn't warmed up properly, and number two, my lines aren't clean enough and my hand isn't sure enough for something like this. So very quickly I completely changed my mind and I switched over to a standard fine liner. And there you go, that's it there. And I still got I've talked about this before, the line width variation just to make the picture more interesting. I just did it by going back over some of my line work and thickening it up and using a couple of different thicknesses of fine liner, and it's just to make the picture look a bit more kind of interesting. I didn't realise until afterwards, I was quite happy with the way this was going, and when I finished, and I seem to have a terrible habit of doing this, and I don't notice things until I'm actually finished the picture, but I realised at the end that Mario's eyes are too small. They should have been probably a third bigger again, so yeah, I was a bit annoyed. I didn't draw this from reference because I have drawn like numerous Marios over the years, and I have looked at that box so many times, and I thought I knew it inside out. Clearly I didn't, so it's my own fault for not using a reference of any description. Had I used a reference, Mario would have probably had proportionate eyes. The hand there, that hand that I've just inked, that one was the one that I thought was going to cause me the most trouble. That was the part of the drawing that I thought I would struggle with, because hands are kind of difficult anyway, and it's kind of at a funny angle, but it's actually turned out all right. I can't really complain about that at all. The part I did have trouble with was actually the underside of Mario, because he's kind of, he's at a slight angle, and I spent ages when I was sketching trying to get that sort of underneathy part right. That's not technically correct at all, but you know what I mean. But I was actually quite pleased with the way it turned out, and at this stage I was like, oh yeah, my drawing looks quite good. And I don't know why, but the eyes look okay here. They actually look quite reasonable, and what I think did it was when I coloured in the skin tone on his face. It was the vast expanse of skin tone that made me realise that his eyes were too small, because when you look at any of the Mario characters, there's actually not a lot of his face on show apart from his nose, and I think that was what maybe clicked in my head. So anyway, never mind. So just before I started inking it, colouring it should I say, I just filled in his moustache and the black bits on his tail, because the ink in the fine liners is archival. It took me ages to pick out colours, even though it's a really simple character. I spent ages with my fancy new marker storage trying to figure out what the best colours were. And now this is I don't have a huge amount of Copic markers, but I have a substantial number now, so I was able to pick out fairly accurate colour matches without having to mix too many markers. With the reds, I did mix prawn and lipstick red, which I think is R24 and R29, and I just used the crimson, which is this dark red here. No, not crimson, garnet, to just put in a little bit of shadow. So I had to do a little bit of mixing with that, but I was quite pleased at the accuracy of the colour, having mixed them a little bit as well. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, the only part I think I really struggled with colours was the skin tone, and the base colour that I've used here could really have been doing with being a shade up from that. It's too pale, and I think that's pretty much what made me realise that his eyes were out of proportion. The blush pink that I've used here to put a bit of shadow in, that was much better, and it kind of helped lift it a little bit, so that was always helpful, or else I think I would have been quite dissatisfied with it. But it's one of those ones where you can only work with what you've got. I do find it ironic though, because out of all of the Copic markers, I have most of the E selection of markers, which is the skin tones and the browns, and I still didn't have one that suited his skin tone, but never mind. I'll just pop in a bit of cold grey in his gloves here again, just for a bit of sort of definition. It's nothing particularly exciting, and I did blend it out with CO, which is one of the kind of paler ones, so that they weren't like harsh lines. I was quite pleased with how that turned out. So I just filled in the buttons on his dungarees, and I used the same colour down on the sole of his shoe as well, which it was just, there was no point. I mean, it's such a thin area. I struggled for colours with his tail and his ears, and I ended up going with mustard and Lionette Gold, or I think it's Lionette Gold. And that seemed to be quite a good match. And it's not two colours I would have put together, because the Lionette Gold is quite muddy or desaturated, I suppose is a better word for it. But yeah, everything was going quite well, and I was stupid to think that it was going to continue to go well, as you will find out just shortly. Hey, no, things never go smoothly with me, you know me guys, come on. I was being really careful though with my markers to not accidentally bump the paper, and again, if you've watched any of my other Copic videos, I always seem to end up with a mark on the right hand side of my paper, and I didn't do it this time, and I was really pleased because everything was going so well and I'd managed not to make that mistake. As I say, I was being, you know, gingerly setting them down nowhere near the paper. And then I got to his shoes and it all went horribly wrong, and this time it was through absolutely no fault of my own. One of my brown markers decided to throw a hissy fit, and it literally just leaked a massive blob of ink right there on his boot, for no reason at all. And you can see me looking at the marker, what the hell? So I quickly grabbed a post-it note and tried to blot off some of the ink, and then I grabbed a colourless blender and tried to push the colour back into the boot. I wasn't too worried about the dungarees side because I knew that that was going to be really dark blue down there and I could probably cover up what was there, but I was trying to rescue the outside of his boot because that paper was just going to be plain white. Absolutely gutted after being so careful and all that work, making sure that I didn't leave an accidental mark on the paper, and that happened. Needless to say, that marker made a swift exit through the cave door via my hand. But never mind, I'll have to have a look at it and see if then maybe the nib's loose or something. Anyway, back to the dungarees, and the three colours I used here were Stratospheric Blue, which was the darkest one, and I used Cobalt and Royal Blue in the middle, which was B26 and B28, and those colours came out perfectly. I was really, really pleased with that. So despite the failings, we got there eventually, and I was actually quite pleased with the result, apart from the fact that his eyes were too small. I did remedy the last of the bleed from that brown marker on his boot just by outlining in a little bit of white gel pen, which you see me doing there just to cover it up. The only other thing to note is that this paper is supposed to be bleed proof, and as you can see it did actually bleed through, so that was a bit disappointing. So next time we'll put something in behind our sheet before we draw on it. All that's left for me to do is to sign this drawing, and I have really enjoyed doing this, and I'm looking forward to filling this little sketchbook with lots of characters from my video game fetish. I hope you've enjoyed watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. If you'd like to see some more Copic videos, you can check out some on the right hand side here. And if you're enjoying this kind of content, feel free to smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give us a like, leave a comment in the box below, and we'll see you next time in the cave. Goodbye for now, everyone.